So good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another album review of The Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host Hector, and tonight we're going to talk about the brand new album by Mammoth Wvh-II. It's called Two. And what can I say? Like, you know what happens when you have a sophomore release? You say, is it a success or is it a dud? So yeah, I actually own the first album here on vinyl. I bought it on record release day, and I actually enjoyed this quite a lot. I know a lot of people shit on it because it didn't sound like Van Halen, but you know what? I'm glad it doesn't sound like Van Halen because I like what Wolfgang did here. He went with his own sound, and the best way to describe Mammoth sound is they sound like a modern rock. His vocals really sound like Daughtry to me a lot. And on Mammoth 2, he keeps on going with that. Maybe for this album, I think it's, he already has one album on his belt, so people can know to expect what is going to happen with Wolfgang and his sound. So if you want a bio of Wolfgang Van Halen, of how much he weighed when he was born and what his favorite color is and all that shit, check out JC Rock and Metal reviews because he will give you that history and shit. I'm not going to give it to you. If you want that, just Google fucking it. I'm gonna talk about the new album. So this new album, I think, is very solid. I think he's working with what he did on the first album and, making it work. There's 10 tracks, 49 minutes in length, and a lot of the sound of Mammoth Wvh-II is like it seems that he's really inspired by those rock bands from the 70s and the 80s, but with a modern production sound. And I like Wolfgang-Halen's voice. I think he's got a great voice. I think a lot of people might think that he's would think he would try to emulate his father's guitar playing, but no, he's a great guitar player and multi-instrumentalist at that. You gotta remember he played with Van Halen when they put out their last album, and I actually saw that concert, and he played with Tremonti on a few of the albums, and he's a great musician, and I think he's just doing what is right for him. He's not riding the coattails of his father, and that's great. Some people may think oh, this is too, the dreaded word, this is too commercial sounding. But you know what, people? Sounding commercial does not mean bad. You can be a black metal band and fucking suck, even if you're not commercial. So do not be afraid of the word commercial. Yes, this is commercial sounding rock music, but you know what? It's pretty good. And I grew up in the 80s. I listened to REO Speedwagon. I listened to fucking Journey. So I like commercial sounding rock as well. If it does great hooks, great lyrics, I'm all fucking in. And this album has plenty of that in spades. So I'm not gonna talk about the 10 tracks. I'm gonna talk about the tracks that stood out the most for me. First of all, the album starts with a great song called Right. And that's one of the hardest rocking songs. I was surprised because it's very rocking. So I can tell that he got inspired through his years with Tremonti playing. So that's a great track. The single that they released, Another Celebration at the End of the World, is just a great fun track. There's a great solo on that track, and it's those type of solos that they sound clean, like those clean solos from the 80s, because the solos right now, sometimes they don't sound as clean as they do on this. So the production on this album is great. Then you have a song like Take a Bow, which I think was a single as well. And that's like a 6-minute song, very long. Again, the Wolf's vocals are great on it. And this one has another cool solo to it. And it's got the drumming is good as well. A song that I thought was pretty catchy, especially in the lyrics, is I'm All Right. And I'm All Right is all about that. Someone saying they're moving on from a relationship, and they're like saying like, oh, poor you, like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, sorry, but not sorry. I'm all right. Like, I'll get through this shit. So it's a fun type of breakup song. And that one has a lot of like 80s flair to it. I couldn't help but think of those bands that I mentioned from the 80s, like the REO Speedwagon, the Journeys. It has a lot of that on that track. Erase Me has one of the best choruses on the album, hands down. And I love it when he sings like, erase me, like he's such heartfelt, like you could hear these songs in a stadium. It's stadium rock. Yes, there's a power ballad in Waiting, which is probably the most commercial song on the album, but you know what, it's good. And it's all about like, he's gonna wait for you even though like the time wasn't right and you decided to not be together, but he'll wait for you until the time is right, which is kind of corny, but you know, it's good corny in a sense. So yeah, the album, you know, has maybe the only things that I would say are a detractor from it is that sometimes some of the songs can sound very similar, and sometimes the modern production is just too clean sounding. Sometimes you want a little bit dirty, a little bit of mistakes. It sounds very well produced and so pristine that you know, it sometimes perfection can get tiring. But it's a very solid album. If you like the first album, I think this is an improvement in songwriting in some way. And I think Wolfgang Van Halen is a very talented young musician. And yeah, I think the Van Halen name lives on through him. So if you like the videos that I'm putting out, do not forget to give me a like and do not forget to subscribe. I have more content on the way. And you know, that helps me with YouTube algorithm to reach more people like yourself. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch. And I'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.